Welcome to Suzanne's studio. I'm Suzanne Barmett, your host, and tonight I am so pleased to present my guests, Julie and Sam Fowlkes. They are the world travelers of the world, and I can't wait for you to see this wonderful show. Welcome, Julie. Welcome, Sam.
Thank you, Suzanne.
You're going to talk about national parks. How come you're so crazy about national parks?
Oh,
Tell.
Well, the national parks are just the treasures that we have in the United States. They're unique. No other country in the world has the diversity and the geology that we have. And the parks are just a treasure. You know, they were started by Theodore Roosevelt when he made Yosemite the first national park. Now we have 58 national parks, of which we've been to all but 3.
That's what I can't get over. And just as an aside, we were talking, and the fact that you two are so happily married, second marriages, of course, little hot information, and that you get along so well because you've taken, at one time, 15,000-mile trips. I can't get over that. And there was another trip, was 10 or 12.
12,000.
So anyway, tell us what you're going to tell us.
We're going to talk about 4 national parks that are unusual, and then we're going to talk about 5 national parks that you can go see from right here in San Jose in about 10 days. So we'll start with the first park.
Okay.
And the first park is the Black Canyon of the Gunnison. And probably not very many people have heard of the Black Canyon of the Gunnison. When we first got to it, we drove and you couldn't see anything. And all of a sudden,
you get to the edge of the canyon and you walk out just to this very spot and you look down, and here's this narrow, deep gorge that's been completely carved out by a river over millions and millions of years.
Yeah, it's if you look at the park as the dimensions, it's a half a mile deep. It was cut by a river. You can show the next picture. At the narrowest point, it's 1,000 feet wide.
And this is granite, right, Sam? It's not sandstone like the Grand Canyon, which is pretty soft and easy to erode. This is granite, so you can imagine the force of the river that had to come through there.
So it would take millions of years to form that, yeah.
Yeah. Some of the rocks in here are 2 billion years old.
Amazing.
So let's go to the next slide.
Okay.
The next picture.
Magical.
Yeah, just tap it.
Yeah.
At the end of the park where you can drive, there's a picnic area, and when the sun goes down on those rocks, it's absolutely gorgeous. In the last picture, this shows you the park in the wintertime.
Oh, my.
It's a beautiful park.
Yeah, with the snow.
So the next park we want to talk about is Big Bend. Now, Big Bend is in Texas.
And everything in Texas is big, Suzanne, particularly this park. It's one of the largest parks of all, Sam, isn't it?
It's one of the largest. It's 800,000 acres. And it has, it's actually larger than the state of Rhode Island.
Is that right?
And it has deserts.
Yeah.
Next slide. It has canyons, and you can see the stratus that you can see in the canyons. And the next slide.
Oh, that's
It
beautiful.
has a mountain range, which is called the Chizo Mountain Range. And at the base of the mountain range, we have lakes, and in the back country, there are also lakes. So you see these are the Chiso Mountains. The next slide. And that's what it looks like at sunset
Oh,
in
that's
Big Bend.
gorgeous.
It's a beautiful, beautiful park. Next one is Dry Tortugas.
Now, this was the first park, Suzanne, where I ever got seasick going to the park. You've heard of getting car sick, but
Yeah.
this is seasick because this park is located 68 miles off the coast of Florida, off of Key West. So on the boat that you take to get to this park, it was a rocky ride.
That's right. It's made up of 7 islands. You can see 2 of them. On the largest island is a fort, and it's Fort Jefferson. Now, Fort Jefferson is kind of unique because it's the largest brick structure in the Western Hemisphere. It has 16 million bricks in it. Now, it was originally built to keep the pirates from boarding ships going up and down the Florida coast. But in the Civil War, the federal troops used it to keep supply ships coming out of the Mississippi River and going up the coast, the Atlantic coast, to resupply the Southern Army.
Before, excuse me, before you go to each park, do you have to study up about it?
It's probably the best thing to do. We have a passport.
Yes, let's see that. That's so cute.
It's kind of like a regular passport that you'd have to go to, to foreign countries. But in this case, for each park, you get a stamp. So there's and there's always a lot of information, Suzanne, at the park. You can actually go into any of the national parks without knowing a thing. And there's all sorts of literature, there's maps. The wonderful park rangers are there with their talks and their explanations of things. So it's really easy. It's an easy access situation. You don't have to study up at all.
One of the things that's unique about this fort is it was used as the prison for Dr. Samuel Mudd. Do you know who Samuel Mudd was?
No, tell.
Who was Dr.
Who is
Samuel
Mudd?
Well, when Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, John Wilkes Booth jumped out of the box onto the stage, and he broke his leg. And so he had to have his leg set, and he went to Dr. Mudd. Dr. Mudd did not report that he had set the leg of this assassin, so he was tried as a traitor, and he was sent to this fort, which was in a prison, to serve out his time. But a very fortunate thing happened.
They had an outbreak of yellow fever, and he helped treat all the 200 prisoners that were there, plus the guards, and one of the things that he used was cocaine.
That gave him early admission, early release. Early release, that's right, early release.
So, can we see the next slide? You can see the fort, and you can see the bricks on the fort.
Yes.
Very dramatic fort. Very unique. We think of the national parks as always being nature, but several of our most famous parks and wonderful parks are structures, just like Fort Jefferson is at Dry Tortugas.
Yeah.
The next slide shows the lighthouse, which is on the fort, which helped ships know where that channel was that as they came out of the Mississippi River down the coast of Florida and around to the other side. And then the last picture shows at sunset.
Beautiful pictures.
And it's a really beautiful place.
Wow.
The only thing to do there is to walk around the fort, but you can snorkel. And we did snorkel.
Did you
while we were
snorkel
there.
too?
Yeah.
Did.
What can't you guys do?
Quite a few things, but we can snorkel at Dry Tortugas, which was really fun.
And the last park we want to talk about are the Grand Tetons. Next slide. Now, the Grand Tetons, Suzanne, are right below Yellowstone. Now, most people know about Yellowstone. It's a beautiful park. It's a big park. But right at the bottom are the Grand Tetons. And the Grand Tetons has at least 8 peaks that are over 12,000 feet. And the Grand Teton is 13,700 feet. But there are lakes all along the base, and there are over 100 lakes in the backcountry. Show the next slide, and we'll see those lakes.
Oh,
Isn't
my
that
goodness.
spectacular?
Now, that is one of the most beautiful parks that we've been to.
What city, what state?
Colorado.
Colorado.
It's in Colorado.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting, Suzanne, the way these mountains were formed. You can see how craggy and sharp they are. That's because they were formed by two plates. Is this right, Sam? Coming together and pushing up. They weren't formed by volcanic activity, which is the way most mountains are formed. So these mountains are so craggy and totally dramatic. And if you're in Jackson Hole looking over at the Grand Tetons, it's like these mountains just come right up from the valley. It's a really dramatic scene.
Go to the next slide, and we'll see some of the other backcountry lakes. Like we said, there are over 100 of these lakes in this Grand Teton area. So it's just an absolutely gorgeous park. And the last slide, you can see it's even more dramatic.
That is exciting.
So that was a wonderful park.
What happens when you get to your park? I mean, do you both just go, wow? I mean, how does it affect you? I always like to know, how does it affect you?
Well, you can see the scenery.
Yeah, but I
So
mean,
it's just
how
like-
you
like-
personally?
Well, you just have a love for these parks.
Yeah.
And you just have this feeling that this is something that we have in the United States that nobody else has. And they're magnificent.
Mm-hmm.
And when we stay in the parks, in a lot of the parks, we can stay in the park lodge.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can't stay in the park lodge, then we have to get lodging outside. But most of the time, we stay in the park.
And who designates these national parks?
It can be designated by the president, but it has to have congressional support. Like Theodore Roosevelt created the first park, which was Yosemite, because he wanted to make these beautiful areas free of people coming in and drilling for oil, doing any kind of industrial type of.
Do you have to pay?
It's quite reasonable. And we have a wonderful, as seniors, Suzanne, we have a wonderful Golden Eagle Pass that I think is $10, $20, and that gets us into all the parks for the rest of our life. No, the parks really are not expensive, and they're not commercial. I mean, the parks look just like this. There aren't any billboards. There's no McDonald's. There's nothing. They certainly have nice souvenir shops, and they have lovely places to eat, but the Park Service has been very careful about keeping a low profile. As a matter of fact, in Yosemite and some of the other parks, they're taking out some of the structures that they've built before to emphasize the natural beauty of the park, because they really don't want man-made things to obscure the beauty of nature. So they really keep it very natural. And most of the park is just trails with small signs.
How many, this is a general question, but I guess each park has its own square miles.
Mm-hmm.
So say just take one park, how many miles is it, or acres?
Like I said, Big Bend is 800,000 acres.
Okay,
So
that's what I want to know.
You can relate that to square miles. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But one of the things they're also trying to do is to keep cars out of the parks. So in several parks, unless you're staying in the lodge, you have to park outside the park, and you're bussed in. So that keeps the exhaust fumes will kill off a lot of the vegetation. So
we've gone back, Suzanne, to a couple of parks over and over again, and we had a wonderful trip at Christmas. So why don't we tell Suzanne about this trip, Sam? This is one of our favorite national park trips.
This trip can be taken from here, and you'll see 5 to 6 parks in 10 days. Mm-hmm. So you drive from here to Las Vegas. you see a show, and the next day you drive to St. George, Utah, which would be the next slide, and you come to the Zion National Park.
Which is very similar to Yosemite. It's bit smaller, but it still has these gorgeous, sheer cliffs with amazing coloration. It's really a beautiful park.
Are you guys climbers too?
Not
We used to be. We've hiked this Zion Park a couple of times.
Not rock climbing, just hiking.
Just hiking.
Yeah.
There are a lot of trails that go up into the rocks. And it's a beautiful, beautiful park.
So let's see, we left Zion and then we went to
Bryce. Now, Bryce Canyon is unique to all the parks. Bryce Canyon is made up of these things called hoodoos. You can see these little spires, and they're red sandstone spires that have been broken down by wind and the snow and rain, and it's amazing. You can see people walking down the path.
Oh, yeah.
And then you can go into the bottom.
But look at the vastness of it, and when you can see the people. I mean,
well, they're called hoodoos, and they kind of look like totem poles.
I see.
And Sam is very good, Suzanne, at looking up at the hoodoos and saying, Julie, do you see the eagle and the owl, and do you see the old lady laying down? And I usually just nod, because I don't see a single thing. But Sam is really skilled at hoodoo detection.
I'm hoodoo.
Yeah.
I can see shapes in a lot of things.
I wonder what that means, psychologically speaking.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And after we leave Bryce, then we're going to go to,
We're going
Capitol
from Bryce
Reef.
to Capitol Reef.
Wow. Oh, my.
Now, Capitol Reef is 100 miles long and has what this is called a wrinkle. And it's where the snow, wind, and rain have whittled away these huge, beautiful peaks. And you have this wrinkle type effect all along Capitol Reef.
And what state is that?
Capitol Reef is in Utah.
In Utah. Okay, but you're still on that.
we're on that sort of circle out of Las Vegas.
Okay.
And you know what's great, Suzanne, is the team that works in each national park, the forest rangers and the geologists and the naturalists, they've put together, maps and guides, driving tours, hiking guides. They usually have a wonderful show at the lodge or at the visitor center, which has beautiful slides, information about the animals. So you really get a whole history and a lot of detail about the park when you get there.
Yeah.
Every visitor center is kind of set up that way.
Yeah.
And at the visitor center,
we get our stamps, right? This is where we get stamped. And then the people that run the visitor center, are these fabulous, dedicated park rangers who have given their life to the national parks. And they're often moved around from park to park, but they're consistently positive, knowledgeable, wonderful to the children. I talked to a park ranger, I'm a teacher, so I said, "You're so wonderful to the children." He says, "Ma'am," he says, "we have to be." He says, "They are our future."
Of course.
He says that we want the children to love the parks.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're leaving Canyonlands.
We leave Capitol Reef,
Capitol
and we
Reef.
go to Canyonlands.
Utah still?
Yeah, still in
okay.
Utah. Canyonlands is cut by the Colorado River, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. And you can see you can see over here, that's a dinosaur right there, and up there is a...
So what do you see in that picture, Suzanne?
I see
Do you see any
kind of an
dinosaurs?
eagle way on the right.
Good. Well, you and Sam
Or a
can-
person, with a huge cloak. See his head.
Looks like rocks to me, Suzanne. Just nod.
But it's a beautiful, and you can actually, if you have a four-wheel drive vehicle, you can drive down in the Canyonlands.
It is such an adventure. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. And the last one we have is Arches.
Oh my goodness.
Arches is absolutely gorgeous too. It has over 2,000 sandstone arches within the park. That's just amazing.
But what is that rock? Is that a rock on top of that?
It has balanced rocks too.
Does it really?
Yeah.
But what? They're not going to fall?
Well, maybe in a million years or 100,000 years, but it's all with erosion.
There
Erosion
are quite a few of these. This is what we took this last Christmas, and you can see the snow that's on the rock.
Yeah.
We couldn't get into the arches. It was the snow, and it was too hard to get in. But it's just a beautiful park too, called Arches.
So people that think that they have to go overseas, wrong. All they have to do is be, but you all have been how many places in the world?
Been to 130 countries. We've been to all the continents. We've been to 58 of the we've been to 55 of the 58 national parks. So we've traveled quite a bit.
You are world-class travelers. I've never had such world-class travelers on this show before.
We love it.
Thank you. You love it. What do you love most about traveling?
Probably the people that you meet, the people you meet in the in the different countries and how they live, and that would be my answer.
What about you, Julie?
And you know, Suzanne, we've met such interesting people in the national parks. So that's the advantage of being in a park. It's kind of a neutral territory. You're not like standing in lines at Disneyland. You're not looking at paintings in a museum. You're just in nature. So you're walking on a trail and you stop and chat with someone, and they're from Germany or they're from Japan. And there's actually a lot of foreigners that come to the American national parks. It's such a treasure that maybe is used more by visitors than it is by some of our Americans. But there's such a it's kind of a fresh, natural, easy place to be. It's not, it's not expensive. Children can just run around and play. People can sit on benches. It really is set up for any age, and you can go back time and time again. We've enjoyed this particular route with these 5 parks because we've gone in the summertime. We've gone in this particular trip. We went in the wintertime. So it's fun to see the parks at different seasons because they look different, feel different.
I mean, this is kind of a silly question to ask both of you because you have traveled so many places. But do you think, I'm making an assumption, but you're so passionate about the national parks, would you say that they are maybe one of the most favorite things you've ever done?
Absolutely.
Ever visited?
Absolutely.
I said to Sam the other day, I said, Sam, I kind of wish we hadn't gone to the national parks. I'd like to start all over again and have the joy of driving into Joshua Tree or going into Shasta or going into the Everglades. We can go again?
Sure.
Oh, good. Can we go 17,000 miles again?
Sure.
Oh, my God. Don't invite me. I'd like to carry your suitcases, but maybe to Paris or New York but that's it. No. Not 17,000 miles.
No. In a car, right?
Oh, that's the worst.
No, it's so much fun, Suzanne. The parks are so beautiful.
Do you think that both of you are born being adventuresome?
Actually, I wasn't that adventurous until I met her.
Is that right?
Yep.
In what way? No, I don't want to be. I don't want to be provocative.
No, I'm not.
Or bodacious.
It's just
that's my new word.
Her father was a travel agent.
Oh.
And so she grew up with travel. And after we got married, we just started doing things like this.
Now, it takes a certain attitude, though, I think, Suzanne, to enjoy travel. And my father had this great expression. He said, adventure is inconvenience rightly considered.
Now, if you think about that, what do you say when you come back from a trip? What do you normally talk about?
the bad stuff that happens.
The
How you dealt with
inconveniences.
missing the
Yeah.
flight or changing the
Yeah,
hotel.
yeah.
So when you travel, you better be ready for adventure. And we've had some adventures in some of these national parks where, you know, things didn't work out. We got there late. Reservations were changed. We were on the trail and it started raining. I mean, when you travel, you better be just set for those
That's
things.
it. But isn't it funny? Instead of people talking about all of the, well, I mean, to see these slides are just, it's really thrilling. It really is. And I'm not a good traveler, but when I see these, it stirs something. It does. So, but you two are so lucky that you're together and that you love doing this. That's what I think is so fascinating. I do. Where's your next trip?
Next trip is going to be from Normandy to Nice on a river in France. Her next trip is going to be to Paris and then to London
Why aren't you joining her?
because she's going to see her son in London. And I'm going to stay home and watch the NBA playoffs.
Go Spurs. Go Warriors. Well, I want to thank both of you so much. I just knew this was going to be a really wonderful show.
Thank you,
And
Suzanne.
how can I miss? Because, you know, I maybe shouldn't personalize this, but you two are my best friends at the Forum. And we have had so many good times together. No bad. So who wants to hear? We can't talk about the good times. But no, I just admire both of you. You're intelligent and warm and loving, and thank you so much.
You are.
And, of course, I also have a warm, loving, hot crew. I
You're
love my
right.
crew
They
so
are.
much. And this is the
Yes.
second time you've been on
They're
the
hotter this
show.
time, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, of course, I want to thank our audience for watching. And you know what? Wait till you hear this. I can't wait to see you next time. Bye-bye. Mwah.